The NFL draft contains 7 rounds and happens every year. Teams build their foundation through the draft, and most notable great players of all time were taken inside the top 7 rounds. Every year, there are a few top can't-miss prospects that are supposed to alter a franchise's outlook and set them up for immediate and future success. Although, there have been a fair share of notable big names that have missed badly. In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the top 10 biggest draft busts since 2000. Now, when I make this list, I'm considering where the player was picked in the draft, their career production, and their longevity in the NFL. But before I get into my top 10, I have some dishonorable mentions to name, including Johnny Manziel, Matt Leinart, Dion Jordan, Derek Harvey, David Carr, Joey Harrington, Troy Williamson, Jonathan Sullivan, Trey Lance, Aaron Curry, and Jamal Reynolds. Now let's hop into the top 10. Coming in at number 10 on my list, I have Trent Richardson, who went 3rd overall to the Browns in 2012. Richardson was an absolute stud while playing for Bama. In his final season at Bama, he accumulated 1,740 yards, 20 touchdowns, won the SEC Offensive Player of the Year award, and also took home the 2011 Doak Walker Award as the nation's top running back. The Browns felt they were getting a franchise cornerstone guy by making him the 3rd pick in the 2012 draft. I mean, after all, this was a guy that was compared to Emmitt Smith and Earl Campbell. But unfortunately for Richardson, his career was far from good. He did have a strong rookie season with 950 rushing yards, 11 touchdowns, and was ranked as the 71st best player in the NFL by his fellow peers. Although he did only average 3.6 yards per carry his rookie year, which was the lowest per carry by any other rookie back in 2012. After 2 games during his second year, Cleveland decided to make a great move on their part and shipped him to Indy for a first-round pick. Richardson's career in the NFL went on a steep decline after the trade. After starting 8 games for the Colts and producing 2.9 yards per carry, the Colts demoted him in favor of Donald Brown. Richardson played in a committee with Ahmad Bradshaw year 2 in Indy, and after more very underwhelming play, he was waived after the season. He went on to sign a 2-year, $3.8 million deal with the Raiders, but was then released by the team before the start of the season. Since his playing days in the NFL, Richardson has hopped around the CFL, AAF, and most recently in 2021, he signed with the Cadeos de Chihuahua of the Mexican Football League, and the media referred him to the league's biggest signing ever. Richardson did play longer than some of the dishonorable mentions referred to earlier, but when we take a look at his draft slot at 3, bust rate at the RB position, and terrible play in the NFL, he finds himself in the top 10. At number 9 on this list, we have Josh Rosen, who was drafted 10th overall by the Cardinals in 2018. Rosen was awesome while playing at UCLA and was considered one of the best QBs in a loaded class that includes a lot of today's star quarterbacks. Rosen was the 4th quarterback taken in that draft, and in a press conference following the draft, Rosen referred to the players taken before him as 9 mistakes. Well, it's safe to say that statement backfired on Rosen. Now, I will say Rosen was dealt a terrible hand. He was drafted by the league's worst roster and had a fill-in head coach that had no real long-term outlook with the team. Arizona moved on from him following his rookie year after they landed Kyler Murray at 1, but Rosen didn't do much to convince Arizona to retain him. In his 13 starts his rookie year, he had a 3-10 record to go along with 11 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. Arizona traded him to Miami following his rookie year, and Rosen started 3 games while throwing 5 interceptions to go along with 1 touchdown. He hasn't played much at all since and has bounced to Tampa Bay, San Fran, Atlanta, Cleveland, and Minnesota. One can argue Rosen never had a real chance in the NFL. But when we look at his draft pedigree and NFL production, in my mind it feels right to slot him in the top 10. The 8th biggest draft bust since 2000 in my opinion goes to Justin Blackmon, who was drafted 5th overall by the Jags in 2012. Blackmon had a wildly successful college career. He won back-to-back Biletnikoff Awards, Warfield trophies, was a 2-time unanimous All-American, and won the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year in 2010. Like Richardson, he was seen as a can't-miss prospect and a player the Jags could slot in as their number 1 wide receiver for years to come. And following his rookie year, it looked like he might be that guy. He finished his rookie year with 64 catches, 865 yards, and 5 touchdowns. However, before his second season began, he was arrested for a DUI. This became a reoccurring theme. In his first game following his suspension, he caught 5 passes for 136 yards and a touchdown. Right when it seemed he was right back on track, he was suspended again 3 games later, and he has not played a snap since. This is one of the more tragic stories on this list, as he seemed to be well thought of by everyone he came into contact with, but drugs and alcohol just wouldn't let him go. Odds are if Justin Blackmon could have stayed out of trouble, he would have been a star, but unfortunately, that was not the case. Clocking in at number 7 on this list, we have Justin Gilbert, who was drafted 8th by the Browns in 2018. When a player is all-conference for 3 years running, a national award finalist for their position, and a consensus All-American, you should feel good about their chances at being a high-caliber NFL player. There were 0 red flags during his draft process. He killed all of his workouts and interviews. But what you don't know when drafting a guy is how much they actually want to play football. And this is what killed Gilbert's career. There was constant chatter coming out of Cleveland that Gilbert was unfocused and lazy. And after just 2 years with the Browns, they had seen enough and traded him to Pittsburgh for a 6th-round pick. The Steelers released him after playing limited action in 12 games. Shortly after being released, Gilbert was suspended for 1 year after violating the league's substance abuse policy and has not seen the NFL field since. Gilbert only ended up starting in 3 games his entire career while recording 1 interception, which was the highlight of his career. Number 6 on this list of the biggest busts goes to Courtney Brown, who was the 1st overall pick in the 2000 draft to the Cleveland Browns. Brown was clearly a stud while playing at Penn State in college. You don't go first in the draft if you weren't looked at as a surefire pick. His list of awards in college were no joke. Brown was a 2-time first-team All-Big Ten. He won the Big Ten Defensive Lineman of the Year award and also the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year award. And like a few others on this list, Brown actually played quite well his rookie year. He started all 16 games while scoring 4.5 sacks and 69 tackles. He also started off hot his second season, recording 4.5 sacks in 5 games played. But unfortunately, that was the beginning of the end for him. He suffered an ankle and knee injury which forced him out of the remainder of the season. The rest of his career, he could just not get on track as injuries pretty much derailed his career. He had another injury in 2002 that cost him 5 games, tore his biceps in 2003, sat out almost all of 2004 because of a foot alignment, hurt his elbow in 2005, and finally injured his knee one last time in 2006. At that time, he was a member of the Broncos, but never suited up to play again. For most of these guys, there are specific reasons why their career was a bust, and unfortunately for Brown, he just couldn't stay healthy long enough. Clocking in at number 5, we take another look at a player who could never stay healthy, and that is Kevin White, who got picked 7th overall in 2015 by the Chicago Bears. White completely missed his entire rookie season after suffering a stress fracture in his shin while participating in OTAs, which required a steel rod to be inserted. His next season, he was able to suit up for the first time. He played in 4 games before a fracture in his left fibula required another surgery and another trip to the IR. 2017 began and ended the same way as his previous 2 seasons, with a shoulder blade fracture and yet another trip to the IR. After playing 9 games in 2018, he was a free agent after the Bears decided to decline his 5th-year option. After sitting out the 2019 season, White was signed by the 49ers to the practice squad and most recently played for the Saints as of last year and actually did manage to play in 13 games. But overall, in 6 seasons of playing, White managed to only appear in 30 games while putting up 397 receiving yards. Out of everyone on this list, you have to feel the most bad for White. This guy just simply could never stay healthy, and who knows what could have been if he ended up staying healthy. Number 4 on this slot belongs to Jason Smith, who was taken 2nd overall by the St. Louis Rams in 2009. Many of you have probably never even heard of Jason Smith, but yes, at one point this guy was a top pick. Smith was viewed as a surefire prospect and a guy that should have been a franchise cornerstone for the Rams. But like everyone else listed here, that was not the case. Smith played in 8 games his rookie year, and after suffering a serious concussion, he was forced to miss the remainder of the season. In year 2, Smith got beat out by Roger Saffold, and then not long after was traded to the Jets for Wayne Hunter. Talk about a blockbuster deal here, folks. After playing limited time with the Jets, he was cut and then signed by the Saints only to be cut again. Jason Smith was flat out awful when he played, and he didn't play much at all either, only having 26 career starts. Now, I get the argument that he was an offensive lineman, and you never really know for sure how their game's going to translate, but this is a guy that not only was horrible, but a guy that never even played much at all. The Rams whiffed on another O-lineman a few years later, picked 2nd in Greg Robinson, and although Robinson was not great, he at least had 70 starts under his belt. 3rd on this list is the once highly anticipated Vernon Gholston, who was picked 6th overall in 2008 by the New York Jets. Gholston was a star at the NFL Combine, throwing up a 455-pound bench press and also racked up 14.5 sacks at Ohio State, which set a school record at the time. Golston not only didn't last in the NFL, but he did not even give 1 inch of what he was drafted for doing, which was rushing the quarterback. In 45 career games from 2008 to 2010, he recorded 0 sacks, 0 forced fumbles, and 0 fumble recoveries. He recorded as many sacks in his final college regular season game as he did seasons in the NFL with 3. After being released by the Jets, he signed with the Bears and Rams but never played a single snap for either team. Golston had a slight different tale than the others named so far. He didn't have any character concerns, off-the-field problems, or injuries. He was just flat out terrible at the NFL level. The runner-up for the biggest draft bust since 2000 goes to Charles Rogers, who was drafted by the Detroit Lions with the 2nd overall pick in 2003. Detroit drafted Rogers to pair with Joey Harrington, who was taken high the year prior. The Lions thought they would have a dynamic quarterback-wide receiver duo, and after Rogers' first game, it seemed they might have been right. In his first career game, he had 2 touchdowns. He also managed to put up pretty good numbers his first 5 games of his career, with 22 catches for 243 yards and 3 touchdowns. Rogers unfortunately broke his clavicle during practice, which put him on the IR for the remainder of the season. And then 3 games into his second season, he once again broke his clavicle, which put him back on the IR. He was suspended for the first 4 games of his third season for violating the league's substance abuse policy. Once he was reinstated, he appeared in 9 games while only recording 197 yards, which wrapped up his playing days. After getting cut by the Lions, he worked out for the Dolphins, Pats, and Bucks. However, he was not signed due to his 40-yard dash time clocking in at a 4.8. At his peak, he ran a 4.4. Rogers managed to hit 2 of the biggest trends here. He not only couldn't stay healthy, but he obviously did not care about the game in a major way. And for those reasons there, he finds himself in at the number 2 slot. And finally, at number 1, not surprisingly, we have Jamarcus Russell, who was drafted 1st overall by the Oakland Raiders in 2007. Even though Jamarcus had a good but not great college career, Al Davis still fell in love with him. Russell had the size, arm strength, and athleticism to be a franchise guy, and after he killed Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl, Al Davis couldn't resist at picking him. Russell's career did not start off as planned. He sat out of training camp and into the first week of the season due to a contract dispute. Oakland finally settled and signed him to a 6-year, $68 million deal. Russell didn't make his first career start until the final week of his rookie season. He was intercepted twice and lost a fumble. And although he barely played his rookie year, Lane Kiffin named him the starting quarterback for the 2008 season. His 2008 season did not go very well. He managed to throw for 13 touchdowns, but had 8 interceptions and an astonishing 12 fumbles. Russell once again started the 2009 season as the starter, and in 9 games started, he threw for 3 touchdowns to go along with 11 interceptions and 9 fumbles. That's close to a 7-to-1 turnover to touchdown ratio. He finished the 2009 season with the lowest quarterback rating, lowest completion percentage, fewest passing touchdowns, and fewest passing yards among all qualifying quarterbacks. Following this disaster season, it somehow got even worse for Russell. It was reported that he was pushing 300 pounds when he showed up to minicamp. Oakland shortly after brought in Jason Campbell to be the starter, and Jamarcus was released. Jamarcus Russell never played another snap in the NFL. He battled with drugs and alcohol throughout his career, and you have to feel for him in some way. But overall, considering the hype, the fact he played quarterback, and his draft slot at 1, in my mind, Jamarcus Russell is the biggest draft bust that we have seen since 2000. Thank you for watching, guys. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know if there's anything else you want to see. Thanks.